Olá, nobre amigo! Tudo bem com você? Eu me chamo Danilo Nobre e seja bem-vindo ao nosso canal Nobre Reino. Se você ainda não conhece o nosso canal, se inscreva, deixe aquele like, ative as notificações e compartilhe os nossos vídeos. Beleza? Então, nesse segundo vídeo da série 100 provas de que não vivemos em um globo, apresentarei mais algumas provas dessa ciência, desse conhecimento tão questionado. Tá certo? Então, sem mais delongas, como é de costume aqui do nosso canal, fica o meu forte abraço e que Deus nos abençoe. Até a próxima.
21. Man's experience tells him that he is not constructed like the flies that can live and move upon the ceiling of a room with as much safety as on the floor. And since the modern theory of a planetary Earth necessitates a crowd of theories to keep company with it, and one of them is that men are really bound to the earth by a force which fastens them to it, like needles round a spherical lodestone, a theory perfectly outrageous and opposed to all human experience, it follows that, unless we can trample upon common sense and ignore the teachings of experience, we have an evident proof that the earth is not a globe. 22. God's truth never requires a falsehood to help it along. Mr. Proctor, in his Lessons, says, "Men have been able to go round the earth in several directions." Now in this case, the word several will imply more than two, unquestionably, whereas it is utterly impossible to circumnavigate the earth in any other way than an easterly or westerly direction, and the fact is perfectly consistent and clear in its relation to earth as a plane. Now since astronomers would not be so foolish as to damage a good cause by misrepresentation, it is presumptive evidence that their cause is a bad one, and a proof that the earth is not a globe. 23. If astronomical works be searched through and through, there will not be found a single instance of a bold, unhesitating, or manly statement respecting a proof of the earth's rotundity. Proctor speaks of proofs which serve to show that the earth is not flat, and says that man finds reason to think that the earth is not flat, and speaks of certain matters being explained by supposing that the earth is a globe, and says that people have assured themselves that it is a globe. But he says also that there is a most complete proof that the earth is a globe, just as though anything in the world could possibly be wanted but a proof that proves and settles the whole question. This, however, all the money in the United States Treasury would not buy, and, unless the astronomers are all so rich that they don't want the cash, it is a sterling proof that the earth is not a globe. 24. When a man speaks of a most complete thing amongst several other things which claim to be what that thing is, it is evident that they must fall short of something which the most complete thing possesses. And when it is known that the most complete thing is an entire failure, it is plain that the others, all and sundry, are worthless. Proctor's most complete proof that the earth is a globe lies in what he calls the fact that distances from place to place agree with calculation. But since the distance round the earth at 45 degrees south of the equator is twice the distance it would be on a globe, it follows that what the greatest astronomer of the age calls a fact is not a fact, that his most complete proof is a most complete failure, and that he might as well have told us at once that he has no proof to give us at all. Now, since if the earth be a globe there would necessarily be piles of proofs of it all around us, it follows that when astronomers, with all of their ingenuity, are utterly unable to point one out, to say nothing about picking one up, that they give us a proof that earth is not a globe. 25. The surveyor's plans in relation to the laying of the first Atlantic telegraph cable showed that in 1,665 miles, from Valentia, Ireland to St. John's, Newfoundland, the surface of the Atlantic Ocean is a level surface, not the astronomer's level either. The authoritative drawings published at the time are a standing evidence of the fact and form a practical proof that Earth is not a globe. 26. If the Earth were a globe, It would, if we take Valentia to be the place of departure, curvate downwards in the 665 miles across the Atlantic to Newfoundland, according to the astronomers' own tables, more than 300 miles. But as the surface of the Atlantic does not do so, the fact of its levelness having been clearly demonstrated by telegraph cable surveyors, it follows that we have a grand proof that Earth is not a globe. 27. Astronomers, in their consideration of the supposed curvature of the Earth, have carefully avoided the taking of the view of the question which, if anything were needed to do so, would show its utter absurdity. It is this: if, instead of taking our ideal point of the departure to be at Valentia, we consider ourselves at St. John's, the 1,665 miles of water between us and Valentia would just as well curvate downwards as it did in the other case. Now, since the direction in which the Earth is said to curvate is interchangeable, depending indeed upon the position occupied by a man upon its surface, the thing is utterly absurd, and it follows that the theory is an outrage, and that the Earth does not curvate at all, an evident proof that the Earth is not a globe. 28. Astronomers are in the habit of considering 2 points on the Earth's surface, without, it seems, any limit as to the distance that lies between them, as being on a level, and the intervening section, even though it be an ocean, as a vast hill of water. The Atlantic Ocean, in taking this view of the matter, would form a hill of water more than 100 miles high. The idea is simply monstrous, and could only be entertained by scientists whose whole business is made up of materials of the same description, and it certainly requires no argument to deduce from such science as this a satisfactory proof that the Earth is not a globe. 29. If the Earth were a globe, it would unquestionably have the same general characteristics, no matter its size, as a small globe that may be stood upon a table. As the small globe has top, bottom, and sides, so must also the large one, no matter how large it be. But as the Earth, which is supposed to be a large globe, has no sides or bottom, as the small globe has, the conclusion is irresistible that it is a proof that the Earth is not a globe. 30. If the Earth were a globe, an observer who should ascend above its surface would have to look downwards at the horizon, if it be possible to conceive of a horizon at all under such circumstances, even as astronomical diagrams indicate, at angles varying from 10 to nearly 50 degrees below the horizontal line of sight. It is just as absurd as it would be to be taught that when we look at a man full in the face we are looking down at his feet. But as no observer in the clouds, or upon any eminence of the earth, has ever had to do so, it follows that the diagrams spoken of are imaginary and false, that the theory which requires such things to prop it up is equally airy and untrue, and that we have a substantial proof that the Earth is not a globe. 31. If the Earth were a globe, it would certainly have to be as large as it is said to be, 25,000 miles in circumference. Now the thing which is called a proof of the Earth's roundness, and which is presented to children at school, is that if we stand on the seashore, we may see the ships as they approach us absolutely coming up, and that, as we are able to see the highest parts of these ships first, it is because the lower parts are behind the Earth's curve. Now, since if this were the case, that is, if the lower parts of these ships were behind a hill of water at all, the size of the Earth, indicated by such a curve as this, would be so small that it would only be big enough to hold the people of a parish, if they could all get round it, instead of the nations of the world. It follows that the idea is preposterous, that the appearance is due to another, and to some reasonable cause, and that, instead of being a proof of the globular form of the Earth, it is a proof that the Earth is not a globe. 32. It is often said that if the Earth were flat, we could see all over it. This is the result of ignorance. If we stand on the level surface of a plain or a prairie, and take notice, we shall find that the horizon is formed at about 3 miles all around us. That is, the ground appears to rise up until, at that distance, it seems on a level with the eye line, or line of sight. Consequently, objects no higher than we stand, say 6 feet, and which are at that distance, 3 miles, have reached the vanishing point, and are beyond the sphere of our unaided vision. This is the reason why the hull of a ship disappears in going away from us, before the sails, and, instead of there being about it the faintest shadow of evidence of the earth's rotundity, it is a clear proof that Earth is not a globe. 33. If the Earth were a globe, people, except those on the top, would certainly have to be fastened to its surface by some means or other, whether by the attraction of astronomers or by some other undiscovered and undiscoverable process. But as we know that we simply walk on its surface without any other aid than that which is necessary for locomotion on a plane, it follows that we have herein a conclusive proof that Earth is not a globe. 34. If the Earth were a globe, there certainly would be, if we could imagine the thing to be peopled all around, antipodes. People who, says the dictionary, living exactly on the opposite side of the globe to ourselves, have their feet opposite to ours. People who are hanging heads downwards whilst we are standing heads up. But since the theory allows us to travel to those parts of the earth where the people are said to be heads downwards, and still to fancy ourselves to be heads upwards, and our friends whom we have left behind us to be heads downwards, it follows that the whole thing is a myth, a dream, a delusion, and a snare, and instead of there being any evidence at all in this direction to substantiate the popular theory, it is a plain proof that the earth is not a globe. 35. If we examine a true picture of the distant horizon, or the thing itself, we shall find that it coincides exactly with a perfectly straight and level line. Now, since there could be nothing of the kind on a globe, and we find it to be the case all over the earth, it is a proof that the earth is not a globe. 36. If we take a journey down the Chesapeake Bay by night, we shall see the light exhibited at Sharp's Island for an hour before the steamer gets to it. We may take up a position on the deck so that the rail of the vessel's side will be in line with the light, and in the line of sight, and we shall find that in the whole journey the light will not vary in the slightest degree in its apparent elevation. But, say that a distance of 13 miles has been traversed, the astronomer's theory of curvature demands a difference, one way or the other, in the apparent elevation of the light of 112 feet 8 inches. Since, however, there is not a difference of 112 hair's breadths, we have a plain proof that the water of the Chesapeake Bay is not curved, which is a proof that the earth is not a globe. 37. If the earth were a globe, there would, very likely, be, for nobody knows, 6 months' day and 6 months' night at the Arctic and Antarctic regions, as astronomers dare to assert there is, for their theory demands it. But as this fact, the 6 months' day and 6 months' night, is nowhere found but in the Arctic regions, it agrees perfectly with everything else that we know about the earth as a plane, and whilst it overthrows the accepted theory, it furnishes a striking proof that the earth is not a globe. 38. When the sun crosses the equator in March and begins to circle round the heavens in north latitude, the inhabitants of high northern latitudes see him skimming round their horizon and forming the break of their long day in a horizontal course, not disappearing again for 6 months as he rises higher and higher in the heavens, whilst he makes his 24-hour circle until June, when he begins to descend and goes on until he disappears beyond the horizon in September. Thus, in the northern regions, they have that which the travelers call the midnight sun, as he sees that luminary at a time when in his more southern latitude it is always midnight. If, then, for 1/2 of the year we may see for ourselves the sun making horizontal circles round the heavens, it is presumptive evidence that for the other half-year he is doing the same, although beyond the boundary of our vision. This being a proof that earth is a plane, is therefore a proof that the earth is not a globe. 39. We have an abundance of evidence that the sun moves daily round and over the earth in circles concentric with the northern region over which hangs the North Star. But since the theory of the earth being a globe is necessarily connected with the theory of its motion round the sun in a yearly orbit, it falls to the ground when we bring forward the evidence of which we speak, and in doing so forms a proof that the earth is not a globe. 40. The Suez Canal, which joins the Red Sea with the Mediterranean, is about 100 miles long. It forms a straight and level surface of water from one end to the other, and no allowance for any supposed curvature was made in its construction. It is a clear proof that the earth is not a globe. 41. When astronomers assert that it is necessary to make allowance for curvature in canal construction, it is, of course, in order that in their idea a level cutting may be had for the water. How flagrantly, then, do they contradict themselves when they say that the curved surface of earth is a true level? What more can they want for a canal than a true level? Since they contradict themselves in such an elementary point as this, it is an evidence that the whole thing is a delusion, and we have a proof that the earth is not a globe.